Hello all, a very good evening. And firstly, a big thank you for joining on a weekday, that too at 8 p.m., kind of in between your dinner and probably World Cup match or any of your TV shows that follow up. So without wasting much time, let me quickly invite our speaker today, Toastmaster Prashant, calls himself as a veteran in the industry of IT industry, who's been working for last 22 years. Currently, he's working for Dell Technologies, where he's been part of the organization for last 20 years. He's working as a senior consultant, and he's been part of Toastmasters for the last 4 years. He's presently serving as an area director at District 121. In his free time, we both share quite a common interest amongst us. We love photography, we love Formula One, and we love sports. So put your hands together for our presenter, Toastmaster Prashant, onto the screen.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you. Absolutely. While the cricket sessions are going on, I'm actually more excited to see the Formula One race this weekend. It's been a 2-weekend gap for us. So I know the results and everything has been finalized, but still it's the passion of the sport which keeps us going. Good evening, everyone. Very happy to be here talking about this specific training on the meeting roles, right? Now, today, what we're going to talk and understand a little bit more is on the general evaluator and the tag team. Raise of hands, if any one of you have done the general evaluator role in the past. Okay, Rajesh, I know Chaitanya has done it, Sumaya has done it. Okay, Vasvi has done it, a few other people, that's good. Okay, so I see a good set of hands being raising that they have done the general evaluator role, some have not done it. I think this session is going to be helpful for both the set of audience. Now, how I want to conduct this audience is, please don't think this of as a training, because this is not going to be a boring 45-minute or a 30-minute session. I want to keep it interactive, and I do have certain content to talk through about, right? It's very important to know certain aspects, certain important tidbits of things which I feel can be important or should be important when we conduct these roles. Now, of course, a lot of you may have different experiences, and if you have, I would definitely welcome you to share that in the chat window, right? Especially some of the seasoned Toastmasters who are here, whether it's Sumaya or Chaitanya or Rajesh or Vasavi, even if Madhu is on, sorry. If you feel there's something you want to add in, don't hesitate, because this is not just a session being conducted by Prashant. At the end of the day, the intention is for all the Toastmasters to know how to conduct this role. So we'll all have our different styles. As I said, the cricket match is going on. Not every batsman can bowl. Similarly, not every bowler can bat. But they all can learn certain small facets of information. See, small, if there was an R counter here, they would have definitely caught my repetitive words straight away and said, Prashant, you used a so or a like word out here. So if any of you love to do a counter report, you can please put a tag against me, right? Anyway, coming back. Today, we're gonna do the session in two facets. First is we'll spend a little bit of time on the general evaluator role. And the second part, we'll spend a little bit of time on the tag team role, which is a part of the evaluation team or the extended team, just to know few things what they should be kept in mind. Okay, so let me start the content. Okay. It's coming up. Can you all see it? Can you all see the screen? Okay. Now, obviously, okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. So obviously, everyone knows it's a general evaluation, right? But I wanted to start it on a different note. Does anyone know what this represents? Anybody?
Reminds me of England flag, but it is nowhere close to it.
You're right. You're partially right. Okay, it's the flag of Georgia. Okay, by the way. We use a lingo generally in chat. We use good evening, and everyone should know this logo, correct? General Electric. By the way, the topic today is none of these. We are not talking about the abbreviation for Georgia country flag today. which is GE. We are not here to say good evening, though we have already said good evening to each one of us. And we are definitely not here to talk about General Electric aviation systems or automation systems, but here we are here to talk about the Toastmasters general evaluation role. Okay, so let's understand a few things, correct? Let me first set the context to say that the general evaluation role is one of the most important roles. And by taking this role, there are a few things which absolutely helps you. Every role, as you all know, in Toastmasters has a benefit, right? Sometimes we know it, sometimes we don't. But I think this role is probably kind of a 360-degree role, which I absolutely love doing it because it helps us to do a lot of critical thinking, to manage time, to definitely be a critic in certain aspects, also to motivate the audience wherever it's required, connect with various members of the club, of the role takers, bring some kind of a team building, cohesive environment, and you as a general evaluator needs to lead that, correct? While you acquire those skills, correct? The intent of the GE is very simple, correct? Right from the time the meeting starts to the meeting ends, everything is something which you need to observe. And let me do a correction out there. It's not just about from the time the meeting starts. There are a few things which you as a general evaluator need to do even before the meeting. We will come to that in the following section of what are the things which we need to do before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting. But the understanding of that is, imagine yourself that you are, which is my favorite example to use, right? Every time, or most of the time, I wouldn't say every time, most of the time I walk into a new club or a new setup where I've never done the G role. This is the example I use. But before saying that, let me ask you a question. Who here knows who is 𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃 Srinath? Answers in the chat window, please. Who is 𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃 Srinath?
He's a
You can
match
answer.
referee in the.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. Thanks, Chaitanya. Okay, so Rajesh says legendary fast bowler. Great. Chaitanya said he's a match referee. Any other answers? Okay. Well, all the answers are right, but I would probably incline a little bit more towards what Toastmaster Chaitanya said, match referee. I actually like to call the role of a general evaluator as a match referee. The match referee does nothing, but he or she, the main primary job is to sit in some booth, correct? And observe the entire proceedings of the meeting. Did the umpires do their role? Did the pitch curators perform their roles perfectly? Was the entire logistics of the match set up in place? Are the two teams available to play the game on time? Have the captains come onto the pitch on time to do the coin flip? Are the playing 11s ready? Are the balls ready? If one ball is lost, do we have a second ball, a third ball? Where is the fourth umpire? Is the third umpire's electronic machines working, the digital screens working to show the right decisions? Every part of the work the match referee is doing behind the scenes, just like a general evaluator does in a Toastmasters meeting. The primary role always is to be the most observant and follow the proceedings of the meeting. Of course, there is a very important aspect of where the general evaluator plays is the evaluation section, right? All of you know that, all of us know, I shouldn't say all of you know, all of us should know that there are 3 sections to a meeting, right? There is a prepared speaker, there prepared speeches, then there's that table topics, and then there's an evaluation section. The evaluation section is typically owned by the general evaluator and by the team, which is nothing but 4 members. Typically, people introduce only the 3. I would love to make those small changes and say the speech evaluators are also part of the evaluation section. So that's why I have captured that The speech evaluators, the timer, the accounter, and the grammarian forms the extended team, which are nothing but in this context of 𝗃𝗃 𝗃𝗃, that if I am the 𝗃𝗃 𝗃𝗃, my timer is nothing but my fourth umpire. My accounter is nothing but the pitch curator. My grammarian is nothing but the umpires on the ground, correct? There are no audience here, right? The prepared speaker is probably the two players on the pitch, like the two batsmen or the bowler playing, right? You don't give feedback to them straight away unless it's required. That job is done by who? The prepared speak evaluator, who is nothing but who is there on the ground, and then you take the evaluations on top of that, right? So put that context into your hand and said, the role is very simple, but yet a bit complex. And the intent is very simple, that the evaluation of the entire meeting should take place, right? A few things to keep in mind. It's important to make sure that the role takers who are there knows their exact responsibilities. A lot of times, let me tell you from my own personal experience, there was a time when I became a general evaluator and I realized that the person who's performing the timer role is doing it absolutely for the first time. So you may want to take a few minutes before the meeting, not exactly 30 minutes before, maybe a day before, to make the role taker comfortable to say, are you comfortable to do what you're supposed to do? Do you know what you're supposed to do? Do you have all the skills and everything? I know that TMOD will also follow, but as a general evaluator, it's very important. Also explain the purpose and the benefits so that the individual knows what exactly to do, knows the exact assignments, the logistics and everything, and definitely keep an eye on the agenda. So far, everything okay with the general evaluator role? Any questions which comes up? I think Rajesh has posted. If any questions comes up, feel free to drop that up. Great, good question, Suresh Babu, Toastmaster Suresh Babu. I'm going to come to that in the next few minutes. I do have a checklist. The checklist is multi-fold. It can be customized to your requirement, but I do have a checklist in front of me, which I'll bring it up in the next section very, very soon. Okay, let's move. So now that we understood the base understanding of who 𝗃𝗃 𝗃𝗃 is, or what does he or she supposed to do, who are the back-end role takers, who are the front-end role takers, let's understand a few things about what needs to be done. But here is where I leave a pro tip, very important pro tip. And let me tell you that every slide will have a pro tip. This is my personal experience. If you are the general evaluator, please do dress up nicely. Please don't come in a collared shirt. You are the critic of the meeting, you are the glue of the meeting, you are the head of the evaluation section. So you have to come to perform that role with certain style, authority, and of course with certain style, correct? So please, just as a suggestion, do it, because the role demands respect and you command the respect from there. Okay, let's move. So what we'll do now is we'll break this role into about 3 sections: understanding the role, the tools, and know your audience. And all three are very, very, very important. Let's understand the role. First and foremost, I've given the high level of overview about the role, but let me talk about 3 things. First, as compared to all the roles which are there in a club meeting, general evaluator role is one of the most advanced roles. So if you've never done this role, especially to some of you who did not raise their hands to say they've not done it, my sincere suggestion would be take the steps one by one, perform the roles of all the other aspects which are there, like tag team, the table topic master. Definitely do the Toastmaster of the day role before you take up the general evaluator. Well, this is not to discourage you from taking up the role, but just as a stepping stone to success, that while the role itself is complex, it's important for you to know the different facets each role is going to perform. What does a timer need to do? What does a speaker need to do? What does an evaluator need to do? What does a presiding officer needs to do if ever you get a chance? Similarly, sergeant at arms, every role is important. Similarly, the G role is important, but unfortunately, it comes with certain additional responsibilities, right? So that's why we call this role as an advanced role. Number 2, Why this is advanced is also, remember, Toastmaster Sumaya brought this up in the very, very beginning, very critical point. This role is about evaluating others. I know that an evaluation as prepared speech evaluation role is also about evaluating others, but you are actually going to evaluate the prepared speak evaluator. You are going to evaluate a timer. You're going to evaluate a presiding officer, a sergeant at arms who generally don't get any kind of an evaluation by the prepared speakers evaluator. The prepared speak evaluator's role is very simple. 5 to 7 minutes standard time, the speech, they're going to evaluate on the objectives of the speech. Remember, if Toastmaster Rajesh is the prepared speaker and Toastmaster Chaitanya is his evaluator, Toastmaster Chaitanya is going to evaluate Toastmaster Rajesh's speech on certain objectives, which is what level, what path, what are the objectives, right? Not beyond than that. But here, it is, yes, there is a checklist, there are things which you need to follow, but it's vague. You can go left to right, and you can go sometimes in between also. So it's important because here you are evaluating certain evaluators, so it's very, very important. And that's why the knowledge foundation of the various roles is very important. I call it as knowledge foundation is because the more roles you do before doing up the GE role, I'll tell you, you can actually perform it with the most ease at any point of time. Okay, that's about the general understanding the role. And here's the pro tip that if you're ever doing it for the first time, please do connect with a member of your club who has already performed the G role, sit with them, get some tips, and make those lists of things which you need to focus on and not focus on, and perform to your best ability. Again, there is no right or wrong again in the general evaluator role. Also, there are a lot of times a general evaluator also makes mistakes. If you're truly a good general evaluator, you will actually know those few small facets of misses which the G will do, which
Yeah, is it for me or is it for everyone? Toastmaster Prashant is offline.
No, I think his screen is frozen.
Okay, let's give him a minute to join back. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can probably share it over the chat and unmute and ask the audience. We can all see if we can share with if we have any answers. So don't hesitate to do that, folks. I'll quickly check with Toastmaster Prashant in the meantime.
Finally, it came back. I had to fix it. Okay, so we were here in the pro tip part that if you're ever conducting this for the first time, then definitely take certain inputs from a member who's already performed it. This is something, again, from my own personal experience. Few years ago, when I think I did the G role for the first time, I definitely caught up with more than one person just to know what are the things which I'm supposed to do and not supposed to do. But over a period of time, what has happened is, because this is my favorite role, let me tell you, I love doing up the G role, and this is my first preferential role all the time. I asked people and said, hey, if there's a club meeting role available, then get me onto as a G role. And even if I'm a stranger to the club, there are certain due diligence which I'm supposed to do, which helps me to connect with people and gives that advantage. Second thing, correct? Let's move to the second part, which is the tools. So I think we had that question which came up, the checklist. Of course, there is a checklist for a general evaluator. There is a script also. The most important part, notes. Let me bring you my diary. I've been using this diary for about a year and a half. And if you ever get a chance, and if you ever, meaning I'll not show you my diary, but if I ever get you, if ever you get to see this diary, it is full of my either T-mod roles or G roles. Because every time I go, the notes are important, and I'll tell you why, but you have to write down things. As a general evaluator, you need to write down things because let me tell you, the content which you thought of at minute one when an essay starts the meeting to the 90th minute or to the 120th minute, which is towards the end of the meeting, you may not remember. And you may capture 25 different types of content out here, right? But you as a GE need to evaluate what you want to share, correct? Just like any other role, you can't be sharing 101 different things. You got to be very crisp and clear of what is important to you, right? So it so happens that I don't know if you can see it. There is a, I think it's not visible, but this becomes my kind of a Bible. And my sincere suggestion is when you are a general evaluator, if your club has a general evaluator book, which you can buy it from Toastmasters International, great. Nonetheless, carry your own pen and carry your own diary, make your own notes, scribble down and highlight those important things. And the last and the most important part of the tool is don't miss out on the agenda of the meeting. I know that the agenda, and we all know that the agenda is set by the TMOD, correct? Not by the GE. But you as a general evaluator need to know exactly who are all the various different role players, number one. Number two, what is going to be the flow of it? Is there any change? Is there any modifications, the timings? Because you may need to chat with your timer and with your presiding officer to do any course corrections if the meeting is going on delayed. So keep a very, very close eye on the agenda of the meeting. Now, let me bring in a checklist, right? So the checklist can be of multifold, okay? You can have a checklist for each role player. For example, sergeant at arms, what all did the sergeant at arms do? What did the presiding officer do? For example, let's talk about SAE. What do you think are the important things to evaluate from an SAE standpoint? Please post your answers in the chat window or bring up your beautiful voices and tell me, just give me a few things. If you are the general evaluator, what are those 2 or 3 things you will look at in the SAA role to qualify?
Maybe I can
Yeah, please.
go. Yeah.
Yes, Suresh.
So one is has we welcomed the audience or the Toastmasters, and second is telling the basic rules of the Toastmasters, like keep the mobile phones in silent mode or don't talk about sex, politics, religions, etc. And third about has he introduced the president, right? I mean, like maybe giving more insights or
Correct.
instead of just calling the name, maybe give some adjectives or introduce, like how our Satya did today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very, very true, very true. I think big round of applause for Toastmaster Suresh Babu, right? Very well done. I think I saw some other answers also, right? You know, we saw AV checks, no question marks. Pradeep, you're absolutely right. AV checks needs to be a part of your validation, right? You don't need to do the AV checks, but just in case the sergeant at arms misses out, then you need to capture. We need to capture that. SAA start time, obviously, right? If the meeting has to start at 10:30 in the morning, it has to start at 10:30 in the morning. If it starts at 10:31, my sincere suggestion is please write that it started at 10:31 and you decide whether it is an important thing to highlight. Maybe that 1 minute of because of certain things which could be neglected, okay? Because sometimes it does happen, correct? But if it's very important, it should be highlighted to say, hey, we started the meeting. You don't need to pinpoint to say that you are the culprit, but hey, the meeting started 1 minute late. That's very, very important out there, correct? Interact with guests. Definitely another point which was highlighted was interacting, make sure if all the members are present mentally in the meeting. Now that may be a little bit difficult for a GE if you're a visiting GE, right? If you're doing this role to another club, but you can take a note of the audience. You can do a quick validation with the presiding officer or the TMOD who would have introduced you or who would have called you into the external club where you're taking up the role. It's just so important that if the audience count is just 10, you already know that, hey, today we have less participation. If the audience count is 20 to 30, you know it's great, right? Or good, you know, or if the club has already got 50, then oh, okay, fantastic. You can call that out and you can give those feedbacks, you know, to some of the members, right? So anyway, coming back, the important part, right? Definitely the checklist has those aspects, and I'm going to put up a few things like I'm just going to read out a few things, right? Did the meeting begin on time? That was called out. Were the 3 golden rules laid out? Absolutely. Did the SAA add energy in the beginning? Let me tell you, this is very, very important. The checklist, if you go by the absolute checklist, the SAA needs to kick off the meeting on time, lay the golden rules, make sure that introduction of PO, great. But let me also tell you that some clubs, again, it's based on the club to club, you can keep an eye on these things. That did the SAA talk about the theme? Because the SAA knows the theme, right? Did they add a personal story? Did they bring out that hummus energy in the beginning, and did they charge up the audience? Did they introduce the guests, or did they welcome the guests? Very important. And somebody brought in about the AV check. Definitely, was a room and the equipment set up on time, or did they do that like 2 minutes to go? Some clubs who do the meetings in person, you should keep an eye. Does the club have a standee? Does the club have a banner? Does the club have their all their trophies kept up in the beginning? Because for guests, it is very important to brand and market out the club. We may feel it's a routine system, but it does stand out. And if you feel it's valuable to add a positive or a note of improvement, please definitely do so. And the last part, this I generally see in community clubs where they organize in community spaces. They have a whiteboard or they have a blackboard, and they actually write out every facet of the agenda. Though the agenda is sent out ahead of time in a digital format, the SAA does write it. So just keep an eye, did the essay actually do that or not? Sometimes it's definitely beneficial that in case you did not get the digital version, you can keep an eye on the whiteboard or the blackboard and keep an eye on it. So this is just a list of things, right? Similarly, a PO has to do certain things. Did the PO welcome the guest? Did the PO share any important updates regarding the club, or do any recognition, or talk about upcoming events? Though it is not a standard practice, there are clubs which does that. Like in our club, in my corporate club, our president generally have something to talk about it. And if you see that, good, you should definitely acknowledge the fact. And one of the most important things which the presiding officers misses out is the gavel. Okay, time and time again, the presiding officers, especially post-COVID, this has been a big challenge because we've gone the digital way. You can just take a pen you can take a pen and do it here, or if you have a gavel in your home or in your office, you can do it. Just keep an eye, because it does represent a very important part of our Toastmasters meeting. But if the meeting is happening in person, do definitely point out to make sure that whether it happened or not. Pro tip, very, very important. This is something which a lot of general evaluator misses out. Yes, it's important to evaluate the speaker as an evaluator, as a general evaluator, but it is important to keep an eye on how did this prepared speak evaluator deliver the evaluation. Because remember, this role is evaluating the evaluator also. So if you had one prepared speaker, you will have to take notes about the prepared speaker also. How did they do, and add your own tidbits beyond than the evaluator. But look at how the evaluator has done. Have they used the sandwich method, or have they used the 3-to-1 model? Have they used the CRC model? Different people use different models, right? Just highlight the things which they did good, where they can improve upon, because the evaluators also need the evaluation at the end of the day. Last but not the least, know your audience. Very important, right? Meaning in every role, we have to know your audience. Similarly, here also, you need to know your audience. Know your audience is very simple. You don't need to know the public out here. You need to know the role takers. Know exactly who the role takers are, especially the tag team and the extended team of the evaluations. Very important. Get the intros. If you are a general evaluator who would like to introduce, because there are certain general evaluators who don't worry about introductions. They said, hey, today's timer is Toastmaster Pradeep. So Pradeep, please come onto the stage and explain the role of a timer. That's acceptable, correct? That's absolutely acceptable. There are no rule to say that you have to do a 3-line introduction. But if you are a general evaluator, or if the club has the practice to introduce every role taker, please follow those practices. Get those personalized 1 or 2 lines of introduction from the role takers. connecting through the Tmod or whoever is helping you. It's very, very important. Last but not the least, keep an eye on the theme of the meeting. Remember, I talked about the 𝗧𝗪 𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗵 example. I'll give you another example, which I generally use in a demo meeting. Again, in a demo meeting, I typically like to go as a GE. If the role doesn't come up, that's fine. I'm ready to take up anything. But remember, in most of the demo meetings we do, the theme is more or less consistent to ABC of communications. That's a standard practice District 92 has been following, and I absolutely love it. Okay. ABC is like the basic foundation of communication. So if you are the general evaluator, you can use the theme and talk about, hey, I have a 3 sniper team today to perform.
Unfortunately, we have lost 𝗧𝗪 𝗍𝗪 again today. Let's wait for a couple of minutes. And I also see a couple of questions on the chat. I think we had one question that Prashant was already addressing about the checklist, and he's already answered it. And he's going through the flow of conducting the GE. I think, Suresha, your question is being answered right now. He's talking about the Sergeant at Arms, presiding officer, and then Toastmaster of the day. I guess his intent is to cover the entire meeting flow and also what aspects of general evaluation or general evaluator would look at each and every role. So for instance, he's also stated what responsibilities a sergeant has during the meeting, or what are the possibilities, how does a club in person or offline would look at a sergeant arm role. The time, the presiding officer, what is the expectation? Hey, usually the presiding officer starts off with an encouraging statement. If there are new members, also let them know what Toastmasters is. Very, very concise, crisp, and also touch base on what is happening within the district. For instance, this is the festive season of contests. Let them know that there's a contest happening and all that. So it's good the presiding officer shares all this. Hi, Prashant, you're back. So
yeah, I don't know what is wrong. Okay. Anyway, I was talking about the ABC communication, right? So you can always keep an eye on the part of the important aspect, the theme, right? The theme is very important, correct? So I use the 𝗧𝗪 𝗍𝗪 example. In the ABC scenario, you can use Team Alpha, Team Bravo, Team Charlie. Now remember, you are now already connecting your 3 critical role takers of timer, accounter, and grammarian to the 3 sections of the meeting, to the 3 ABCs of communication. Various things can be performed if you know the theme of the meeting and build some connectivity from the role per se to the audience, because the scripts are very standard. So it's very important to build some humor, some uniqueness to the audience out. So that's why the theme preparation, you don't need to prepare the theme, but you just need to know what the theme is from the Tmod so that you can use it. And that's exactly what I brought in from the pro tip. I think I'm just moving away, right? Connect your role, connect the tag team role, connect the G role to the theme of the meeting. Keep it very consistent. You can use any real life example, add a bit of humor, use the rule of 3 like I did on the ABC part, correct? It actually connects out very well with the audience, because otherwise it becomes a little bit more boring as the evaluation becomes out. So this is just to keep the flavor out. Okay, let me move in the interest of time and we'll come in. So few things to keep in mind from before, during, and after the meeting. Before the meeting, know your role takers, very important. Know the meeting agenda, very, very important. Know the venue. You should know as a venue whether it's an online or in person, because if you are the GE and if you are not there at the right bang of time of the meeting start, the meeting should not ideally start because the GE is not there, correct? And if you're a really good GE and if you walked in at 10:32 and if the meeting is supposed to start at 10:30, let me tell you, you should be a critic of yourself. And in your evaluation, you should say, my apologies, the meeting started at 10:32 because the general evaluator, you don't need to take the name, because the general evaluator turned up 2 minutes late. Most of the time, you should address the feedback in a third person and not directly to so-and-so person, right? You should say, the timer, Toastmaster Pradeep did this so-and-so. Toastmaster Pradeep, you did this great, is something which we should start avoiding. It should be generally addressed in the third party perspective. Venue, logistics, and preparedness, these are very, very important things before the meeting. during the stage, all on stage. What is all on stage meaning? Every person who comes on the stage is your opportunity to acknowledge their positives or set of opportunities, right? So you need to keep an eye on every speaker who comes onto the stage. And that's why observation skills are very, very important. Taking notes is very important. Similarly, introductions and the tag teams are very, very important. After the meeting, it's very important to submit a report. That means that I know, like Toastmaster Chaitanya, I don't know if he's still on because I got dropped a couple of minutes. I've seen Toastmaster Chaitanya perform the general evaluator role multiple times. And you know what his style is? Exactly like the way I'm doing. He's got a presentation. He will put up for every role taker the things which the presenter did good and where the presenter can improve upon. And similarly for the overall meeting, certain bullet points. It actually creates a huge impact because now you're just not listening in, you're also observing what's happening in the meeting. Again, the style is left to you, but these are important things. And definitely if you see something going wrong, don't bring that up in the meeting. Post the meeting, pull aside those individuals or talk to your presiding officer, talk to the team or talk to the speaker and give them that perspective or that feedback on a one-on-one basis after the meeting. I know it's important to be constructive feedback to be given. Great, we do that. But if there's something you want to add in more beyond the constructive feedback, don't do it in the meeting. Do it after the meeting so that the individual does not feel that it's been a vindictive or a targeted, but you can just pull them aside, speak to them for 2 minutes and close off that conversation. Because it's important to close loop the misses and the opportunities which the individual may have, and you may just want to highlight to them towards the end. Okay, we'll come to the tag team in a second, but here's another very important pro tip. A lot of times we go with the checklist, and I'm going to share the checklist with Rajesh, and I can circulate that to all of you. Things to be keep in mind as a general evaluator is not just on the checklist, but on time, the enthusiasm, how much prepared the individual has been, how organized they are, how they have performed the duties of the role. All of this is very, very, very important. And we as general evaluators needs to keep an eye on it. Okay, it's just not about did the meeting start on time? Yes, that's a very important facet of a Toastmasters meeting. But remember, in the Sergeant at Arms checklist, which I just gave as an example, was the energy, the enthusiasm, the personal storytelling encourage the members because the SA did a fabulous job or did not do it? Please highlight those small facets also, because that's what's going to take that speaker's positiveness or the confidence to the next level, because they need to know how to perform ABC things in the right way. Okay, everybody with me so far? We moved to the last section of the tag team. So the tag team, right? Again, I'm not going to get into the basics, but I'm going to leave certain things. The tag team are very important. What is KYR? Does anyone know? Can think about KYR? Everyone knows KYC, right? We all do every 6 months, right? KYR is know your role. Oh, thank you, Pradeep. Oh, fabulous job. A round of applause for Pradeep. Thank you. Know your role. Definitely know the tools, the script, definitely the important part of the reporting, and also get to know what is so important about from the learning standpoint of the role. So we'll quickly touch base on each of the roles. Timer. Okay. The most important thing about the timer which we acquire is listening skills, summarization of report, and I'm hiding the third part, which is multitasking. If you ever thought the timer role is a boring role, let me tell you, no, it is not. Perform a timer role in 3 club meetings back to back, and then look at yourself how strong or how better you are equipped to do multitasking things in your work part or in your personal part. Let me tell you, you can test it out for yourself. You got to have the clock running here. You got to have the report here. The G is pinging you. The T-mod is pinging you. You got to listen to the speaker. You are indulged in the speaker, but no, your job is to clock the time, correct? That's where multitasking comes into picture. So here are a few things which I've highlighted for all the tag team role as do's and don'ts. Very, very quickly, I'll take you through. Try to set as a timer in the first row. Don't hide in the last row, because remember, the timer role is to show the timing cards like these. Can you all see the timing cards here? And should be in the front, right? If you're hiding in the back behind three heads, okay, how will the speaker, or maybe the speaker may not see, right? So try to be in the front as much as possible. And if possible, meet the speakers or meet the evaluators and align on the timing so that you know exactly, is it a 5 to 7 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes, 10 to 12, 4 to 6, whatever it is, so that you keep an eye on it. I know the evaluators will read out, but if you can't do that, preparedness, nothing like it. Grasp the agenda and control the meeting. Let me tell you the most important part of a timer role. What does this mean? When the TMOD publishes the agenda, of course, you will have everything, right? Please don't clock only the speakers. Clock the entire meeting from 10:30 a.m. to say 12:30 p.m. and report out every section based on what is listed out, because it's important to not just have the speakers be on time, but the entire meeting to be on time. Okay, so you need to know, and if you're running ahead, if you're running behind, you got to communicate to the TMOD, you got to communicate to the G so that the course correction can happen. Now, I as a G, my personal practice is I'll keep the agenda open at one side if it's a digital meeting, right? Or if it's an in-person meeting, I'll keep it in my phone, just keep an eye on it. If I know that we are running 5 minutes behind, I'll keep an eye with the timer, I'll connect with the timer quickly, get some feedback. But try to pass on those messages to the subsequent speakers so that things can be wrapped out at a much faster speed and not very elaborate. It's very, very important for the timer to kind of operate on it. Connect with audience. What does connect with audience meaning? There is a script all the time. Generally, the timer will come and say, hey, good afternoon, good evening. My name is 𝗚𝗏. I'm going to perform in the role of a timer. I'll be holding up the timing cards. I'll raise the card at 5 minutes. I'll raise the yellow card at 6 minutes. I'll raise the I'll raise the red card at the 7 minutes, and the timer and the speaker will have a 30 seconds buffer time. Great, it's important. But does that need to be repeated every time for every? No, you got to read the report as your role in a very crisp and clear format. You got to condense, but read out the important message. Start with the quote. Tell why timing is so important so that you can connect with the audience. It's very important to connect with the audience to say that this role is not what everybody thinks it's a boring role. It's one of the most important roles. From a tool standpoint, if possible, keep 2 devices. If not, there's an online timer. I hope all of you know that there's an online timer role, which you can use it in Chrome or anywhere, and that helps out. Keep the timer, show the timer cards always, even if you've done the role 10 times, always show it. And the most important thing is always leave a key takeaway to your audience when you're reading out the report. Don't just read the report and just walk away, which is where I'm going to come out in the don'ts part. In the don'ts part, don't raise the card and pull it down immediately. Observe the speaker and see if they have acknowledged, if they have seen it, and then pull it down. If it means you got to hold it for 10 seconds, that's absolutely fine. Please do so. Don't always read the script. Do your own improvisations, do your own humors, do bring in your own stories, do your own examples of time management. And most important, we lose about 20-30 seconds in every club meeting. Is if it's an online meeting, the timer is struggling to share the screen. Try to bring in Excel report. Don't have to do that. Don't have to read everything line by line. This is where the summarization part comes into picture. Think about it. You got 3 minutes to give a project update to your boss in a meeting. Would you go line by line and give him or her all the entire summary of the report of the project? No, if you have 3 minutes, you're going to talk only the critical things, right? Similarly, as a timer, you got 1 minute to give your timer report. So bring out those important facets of what did you capture in the timing part. Don't have to read out. Like if you have 8 prepared speakers don't have to read out speaker number 1, Rajesh did 2 minutes 10 seconds, speaker number 2, Pradeep did 2 minutes 11 seconds. No, you got to read the room. And if you're running short of time, you said, hey, all speakers met the allocated table topics time of 1 to 2 minutes. So fantastic, great job everyone done, round of applause. That's it. That's a summarization report which is required. And then publish the report in the chat window. Don't have to keep reading the 8 names and the 8 said 2 minutes 15 seconds, 1 minute 37 seconds. Right? I know it's important, but you can be crisp and clear on that, right? As timing is important for a speaker, similarly, the timing is important for you also. Next, a counter. Similarly, listening skills are one of the most important parts. Summarization parts is one of the most important things. The third, which I'm hiding again, is, let me tell you, self-awareness. You cannot have a better role of self-awareness in an counter than any other role. Grammarian roles are different, timer roles are different. Counter is the role where you will actually, when you start paying attention, you will realize how important the crutch words you are going to use yourself, and you can actually mark yourself down. Okay, do's and don'ts. Demonstrate what is a crutch word. Don't again read the script. Demonstrate what is a crutch word so that the audience can understand, especially for the newer members. Connect with the audience. Same example. Always carry a pen and a paper. Okay, so that you can write down the things. And most important, leave a key takeaway. As an counter, what do you want the audience to improve on? If 45 times in the entire meeting so has been used, what would you suggest the audience to go do? Leave always one key learning for whether it's a seasoned Toastmaster, a new Toastmaster, or a guest, doesn't matter. Leave always one key takeaway for the audience. That's one of the most important roles of the tag team, not just for the accounter, for timer, grammarian, and everybody. Okay, that's the important part. The other parts are same. Don't read the script all the time. Improvise. Don't wait for the screen sharing, and don't read the report line by line. If you have 18 different clutch words, and if you have 14 different speakers, look at the matrix. Would you read every line and say, so was used by Pradeep 4 times, then Rajesh used it 10 times? No, it doesn't work out that way. You can give that feedback on a one-on-one if it's required, or put that entire report message in the chat window, or give a screen share later, or a printout later. You got to summarize for the entire meeting what is important, which you have observed. What's the key takeaway for it? Okay, last but not the least, a lot of things in grammarian, but I'm going to keep it very simple. You know that grammarian has to choose the word of the day, and the important thing is you have to keep it aligned with the theme. Please don't, my sincere suggestion, please don't put a theme or a word of the day which is difficult or technical. Just because we have to learn something doesn't mean that it has to be technical. It can be simple. It's something which we don't use on a daily basis, is what is going to make our vocabulary better. Then all the good usages and not so good usages, everything fine. There is no particular order in which you have to read the report. But here is something which I generally prescribe, right? Start with the positives as used, the good usage, then the not so good usage, the incorrect pronunciation, and lastly, the count of the usage of the word of the day. This is my suggested mode. It's not right, it's not wrong. You can always modify it to your comfort feeling, just general guidelines for it. Okay. Two important things out here. When you're reading out the report, when there is a good usage, a fantastic quote, or a beautiful vocabulary word used, do highlight the speaker. But when it is an improper usage, I would never recommend you to take up the name of the speaker. Whether it is used 3 times incorrectly or once incorrectly, doesn't matter. Please don't bring the name of, whether it's a seasoned Toastmaster, new Toastmaster, doesn't matter. Just highlight either the incorrect usage or the improper grammar usage and said, hey guys, this was heard in the meeting. Okay, as you can see on the top, right? I have been working for this award since 10 years. This is the most common mistake we do. It's actually award for 10 years. So if you hear this, and if Prashant used this, don't highlight Prashant's name. Say that, hey, this word was, or this sentence was used. The correct usage is not since, the correct usage is for. That's it. It's a learning for everyone, not just for the individual, remember. Okay, so positive, always beat the drums. Any room of improvement, keep it hush. Take the person aside if you want to, if there's too many improvement areas, and take care of it, right? There are very different types of usage of alliterations and other things, like rule of the three, anaphora, idioms, rhetorical questions, hypophora. Okay, if you are the grammarian, please get to know the technicality of how to utilize it. Okay, so again, that's why it's important to have a template. If you want, I can pass around another template to Rajesh. There's a template available. And remember, at the end of the report, always another key takeaway from a grammarian. Grammarian, one of the crown of the roles from the tag team perspective, so it's very important. Don't read the script word to word. Stop wasting time on screen sharing. I already talked about the not so good usage, not to be taken up by the name of the individual, make it generic. The last, keep the summary report crisp. That's exactly what is the last part, which is the feedback sharing. There are too many things in a grammarian report. It's not just simple clutch words. It's not simple timer report. Grammarian report is vast. It's a spectrum of information. So you can't read out everything. You got to condense the data, and that's why it's important to keep it very crisp. Read out the important things, neglect what is not important, highlight those things which has been done great, things which has not been done so great, and end of the story. Again, this role has a beautiful learning from listening in, summarization, and most important, feedback sharing. If ever you want to become in your office setup, corporate setup in your business, and if you want to improve yourself on feedback sharing or crisp summarization, grammarian report or grammarian role is a very, very important learning for it. You actually learn from doing it multiple times, and you actually become an expert out of it. That's the tag team. I hope the do's and the don'ts in all the three roles were helpful, and I hope that the G role was also important. I actually read this somewhere, right? About a general evaluator role, right? And I'm going to read it word to word because I couldn't just memorize it, correct? So the general evaluator is considered to be one of the most self-obsessed person in the meeting. Okay. He or she looks at every meeting on the stage to find faults and think, well, I can do better than that person in that role. And that's why the general evaluator is so narcissist that he even looks at a timer and said, hey, the timer, he did this. I think I can do better than this, right? Well, unfortunately, that's how the role looks like. But there are always two sides to every role. If you put a little bit of preparedness, my last message to every role, what you do, that prepare, deliver it, but most important is crisp, condense, and very particular to what is to be done. There's a lot of info always out there, but always leave the audience in terms of a key takeaway, because that's going to be the most important construct of your role. Whether you are a GE, whether you are an SAA, or in this case, a tag team. With that, I come to the end of the understanding the meeting roles and certain tips of about what is GE role, what are the things to be kept in mind from a GE role standpoint, and what are certain things from a tag team perspective. I hope this was useful. If you have any particular questions, if you want to know anything particular, you can please connect with me through Rajesh. Very important, and I can always help out. If not, definitely helpful. With that, I now hand over back to Rajesh. Thank you very much. If there are still any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If not, Rajesh, over to you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Prashant. Can you have a round of applause virtually or in person? Whoever can do unmute. Thank you so much. I guess this video, when it gets uploaded on YouTube, will have the maximum number of hits, because right now in the district, we have a lot of new club members who've joined in, and this was one of the highest checked role that was requested for a training. And thank you so much for taking out your time, Prashant, on a weekday. I know you've just traveled and come back home today, and it was fantastic. I guess we just have 1 more minute left, and there is one question from the audience. Pradeep has a question that, how do I encourage myself to take up roles where I'm less conscious. I think this need not be for grammarian, but any role. How do I take
Yeah.
it up?
Yeah, my suggestion, Pradeep, would be, see, grammarian, a lot of people shy away because they think that they need to be a grammar expert. You don't need to be a grammar expert, right? If your listening skills are good, let me tell you, grammarian role is a technical role in nature. Okay, it's not what we typically call the grammar ma'am role, right? It's not. If you have a strong hold of English, great, it does help you, right? What is important here is how do you perform this role technically to its requirement? And that's why the listening skills makes a very, very important part. My suggestion is, if you have recordings of certain meetings, just do a demo of yourself and say, do you catch all these things, ABC things, one, at your own free time? Two, if you are very, very shy, or if you're, when I say shy, if you're less confident, my suggestion is let a grammarian role do the role he or she is doing. Be the backup. Do once or twice your own assessment of what do you perform in the role of a grammarian. That means that you are not the official grammarian. You will not even be introduced to that role, but there is a different role taker who's doing it. You will be like a proxy for your own benefit. Do that, and that helps out to kind of get to know a little bit more perspective. The third, which I can suggest, is a lot of times these education sessions do happen. A lot of people keep doing education sessions. Do participate in it. That's the only way you can get to know a little bit more about it. The technicality part of how to get indulged in it. These three things, Pradeep, would be my suggestions to kind of break any role, but in particular about the grammarian. Okay. Suresh, you had a question?
Yeah, Prashant, maybe I'll take a minute. First of all, thank you so much, Prashant. Really insightful and really helped. And because I'm going to take the G role this week, so first time, so so really helpful. And just one question, Prashant. When I do the G role, right? If I need to give a report out, what is the order I need to follow? I mean, like first I need to invite the evaluators, and second the
Yes.
tagged report out, and then
Correct.
I have to give my overall role, right?
Yes, very, very, very true, right? So imagine the meeting is at 10:30, so you have a window, say from 11:45 to 12:10. 25 minutes have been given for evaluation, right? Because then the PO has to do. When you come on the stage, which is the last, not the introductions, but now in the evaluation, you got to start in the same order in which the meeting started, okay? Which is first, we have to complete the prepared speak evaluations. Okay, so you will call, if there are two prepared speakers or three, similarly, you'll have to call the evaluators, and it has to be sequential. That is, speaker one's evaluation completed, you have to immediately give the speaker one and evaluator one's feedback. Okay, then call the evaluator two. Evaluator two will evaluate speaker two. Right after that, both speaker and evaluator's feedback you need to provide. Okay, and avoid any repetitive things which the evaluator has already said. If you have something unique, then add it up. If you have nothing unique, so once that is done, okay, my suggestion would be to get the R counter and the grammarian into the picture. Call the timer the last, because the timer will be evaluating the entire timing of the meeting, right? So call the timer in the tag team the last. That is the second section. So imagine, meaning this is what I call it as a divergent of meetings, right? Remember, our club meetings have three sections, tag team have three roles, and I love to call that the evaluation section also has three sections. First is the prepared speakers evaluation, two, the tag team report, and three, your own general evaluation of the entire meeting. So everywhere it's the 3-3-3. That's why I love to connect the rule of the three to everything in a G role. So prepared speakers, then tag team, and preferably, again, it's my personal choice. You can utilize anyway. Call the timer the last, and then at the end, which is your personal evaluation of right how from the moment the meeting started to how the meeting ended. This is one format. The second format, which I generally don't prefer, but I'll leave it to the G, is they'll start with the entire meeting in the same flow, that they will give feedback about the SAA, they'll talk about the PO, they'll talk about the T-mod, And after TMOD comes section 1, which is the prepared speakers section. That's the time they will introduce the evaluators. I feel somehow it's a enforced aspect of it. While it's a good model to flow, my suggestion would be go with the 3 sections: speaker evaluations, tag team, and your own evaluation. That's a very constructive way of doing it.
Thank you so much, Prashant.
Yep.
Thanks,
Pradeep, I know you
Prashant.
have one more question, but if you have time, we can do it. If not, we can skip that up. Not a problem. So
Prashant,
Rajesh,
I'll formally
Yeah.
close the meeting and leave it for open and networking session. I'll
Yeah.
open a session for all whoever wants to stay in, because we are in between dinner and
Yeah.
probably the end of the match. So folks, thank you so much for joining. We'll also meet all of you tomorrow for a session on Toastmaster of the Day, how to typically handle the Toastmaster of the Day session by another seasoned Toastmaster. And folks who want to stay back and have further questions for Prashant, feel free to say, Prashant, as long as it's comfortable for you, you're open for questions. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. So if anyone wants to have any questions? So Pradeep, if you are still around, I can answer the second question.
Yes, I am around.
Okay, cool. So your second question was that any do's and don'ts if you go to a new club, there might be different parts of meetings for different corporates. I'd been to a community club which had listener role wherein we absolutely very good question, right? And that's why, remember I said one of the important things is the preparedness, correct? Try